Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Welcome to the inaugural episode of The Dickhead and the Mantis King. Welcome to Dickhead and the Mantis King, the podcast variety show full of thought elevation, hot syncopation, and plenty of ejaculation. Here are your hosts, Dickhead and the Mantis King.
Dickhead and the Mantis King.
Hello. Today, we come forth to discuss with you readers humor as a revolutionary tactic.
Yes.
Well,
we've divided it up into a handful of sections because I think we've all been thinking a lot about how the fuck do we fight fascist D-bags. I do consistently think of that photo of Elon Musk and his weird shaped body and his weirdly shaped body, and the fact that somebody on the internet said that he had the rib cage of a dairy cow, which really makes me laugh.
so rude.
I think it's and also a
as opposed to a what cow, like
accurate
a free Roman
analogy.
cow?
Like, have you seen him shirtless?
No.
We'll look it up later.
We will see this.
We will see this eventually. If we can, we'll
Stay
put it
tuned,
on
readers.
screen. It's really upsetting though.
We'll
So
make
I
fun
don't know
of
if we're
it.
going to do that to you.
We'll make fun of it at length, but you can, choose whether or not you want to join us for that.
Google,
portion.
Google at your own risk.
Dairy cow,
rib
Musk.
cage, Elon Musk.
But my question to you is, what's the difference between a dairy cow and a non-dairy cow?
And a non-dairy cow?
So
they're
just rotten on the inside. They don't make any good milk.
Oh no! Don't blame the cow.
Let's bring it to a really sad.
Let's bring it to a really sad. Blaming.
Some cows are just bad.
The state media has been spreading lactose intolerance. The stakes have never been higher.
Holy shit.
Anyways, so today we are going to start off with using humor as a coping mechanism. So thinking of experiencing trauma and then a way to kind of deal with that trauma.
Yeah. I mean, my first inclination would be
take it away.
Was to be like, Lilo, you had a shitty childhood. Stop. You're crossing the line. Lilo, you had a shitty childhood, and you are one of the funniest people I've ever known. And I think Lilo is and we'll talk about this later, but the quintessential humor in the form of absurdity to deal with shitty situations. I think that has formed their entire personality.
Oh yeah.
But obviously, lots of people and lots of funny people generally go through traumatic shit and then use humor as a way to cope. It is a way to, I had it in quotes here, make the horrors less scary. And then you were talking previously about Hannah Gatsby and her, what is it about her Nanette special? Because I haven't seen the full thing. Sorry, readers. I haven't seen the full thing yet. So what is it about her special that is what is she dealing with in it?
So what stood out to me about Nanette specifically is that it was her kind of declaring that she was done with comedy. And one of the reasons she listed is because so much of it comes down to this self-deprecating message. And she kind of said, I'm done with that. I am done, compromising myself and even jokingly kind of putting myself down at the, for the laughs or for the entertainment of others.
Yeah.
And what it ended up being was kind of she still got laughs because she's fucking hilarious. Yeah. And had jokes in there that were gold. But she also tackled subjects like sexual assault and, artists like Picasso who were actually total fuck faces who had sex with underage women and just spoke in really horrible ways about women and then appropriated their art. Next episode. Oh, But the whole thing was very, very balanced, and she kind of kept coming back to this idea of tension and release. So she said that basically the crux of every joke is you build up tension and then you release.
Yeah.
And she said, I just can't deal with the tension anymore. I can't manufacture tension because I have
totally.
enough of it
I have enough
as
of
it
it.
is.
Totally. Well, actually, that makes a lot of sense in terms of it being an especially effective tool when things are shitty because you have the built-in tension. So everybody's already fucking there, and
we're
just
tense, bitch.
We are tense.
We're fucking tense. Look at this.
I'm gonna go get a tail massage later, just to deal with this.
Again, my tail hurts too.
You can't see it, but it is sticking out at a 90-degree angle from my ass.
Look at this. This is the cheese butt. Sore cheese butt.
Cheese butt is tense.
It's like if it was a cheese, it would be like a smoked Havarti.
I do think you are, again, especially cheese wizened right now.
If you were a cheese,
a well-aged cheese whiz. If I was a cheese, oh girl, I would be that delicious New Zealand cheese from Trader Joe's. That is so tasty.
Perhaps the perfect cheese.
Perhaps the perfect cheese.
In the perfect thick slices.
Not to toot my own
cheese horn.
Not to toot my own cheese whiz.
Go ahead. You can toot my cheese horn. Yeah, what if it actually sprayed cheese out? That'd be disgusting. Money shot.
Thank you. I hate that.
Yeah, me too. I don't even like Cheese Whiz.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Okay. So this is the Cheese Whiz conversation is when my partner's from Missouri and he has two older siblings who as older siblings often do, my older sibling included, grew up at a time when their parents were far less affluent than they were when my partner grew up. And so whatever, the TLDR is that his older brother, Peanut, is like, Cheese Whiz was the fancy cheese. Velveeta was the fancy cheese. And I was like, that is the bleakest,
those are
poorest
the worst cheeses
I have ever heard in my
They're not even
life.
cheese.
They're not. They are literally
cheese-like products.
Exactly. Not legally allowed to be cheese. So I was like,
oh gosh, Peanut.
That is psychotic.
We got a ways to go, Peanut.
Yeah. That's okay. But anyway, so Cheese Whiz, I agree. Also not a fan and don't ever really eat it. But it is
but I'm fun to spray.
But they have a built-in money shot, and I do think that should be respected.
We're gonna end this episode with a cheese money shot.
The other, like I said, as a person with a shitty childhood whose coping mechanism was absurdity generally.
Yeah, we definitely have that in common.
That is another way that we talked about humor being a coping mechanism and a tool in times when fascism is rising, because it helps you see the inherent absurdity in fascism. There is absurdity in statements like, we are the strongest people in the world, and yet we are also in critical mortal danger. And so we need to attack people who are presenting a threat to us. There are also indications of like humor being used in surrealism, again, to like point out the absurdities of everyday life. We talked a little bit about meme culture and things like that.
Yeah, which I do feel like memes are kind of the modern day take on surrealism.
Yeah.
I think it's all about kind of using humor to see the things that the world presents as very serious and set in stone as actually very loosey-goosey, comical, and made up.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
It's like this is all fabricated by people who want to keep things the way they are, but humor allows us to kind of see through those things, laugh at them, and reimagine them.
Yeah, absolutely. We also talked too about one of my humor icons is Jon Stewart, because he always used humor as a way to point out the hypocrisy of certain situations, and especially of like politicians and people in power. And humor is all about drawing contradictions and or like pointing them out basically, and using that in order to release tension.
Horny. Are you horny?
Coming back to kind of people who've had traumatic lives being some of the funniest people I think about. Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah.
So, he was everybody's beloved comedian in this country. He was so just universally charming. And
totally.
Funny, and turned out to be just one of the saddest.
And had an incredibly dark interior. Absolutely. Totally.
And I feel like that's the case with a lot of comedians or the people who are funny because they have perfected the art of distracting from horrifying things with
That's
humor.
true, bitch. That's
It's
true.
a
It's a
defense
distraction thing.
mechanism.
Yeah,
It's also a way
absolutely.
to kind of mediate the moods of the people around you. So if you grew up in an abusive household, sometimes you will develop humor as a way to make sure people aren't angry, or, you know, make sure people are laughing and happy so that you're safe.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you don't know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that's an incredibly common. I mean, again, yeah, actually, it's a terrific segue into the next thing that you and I talked about, which is like humor as a common language as a way to get people to relate to you. And one of my favorite common languages. So yes, it's a way to get people to not attack you if you do grow up in abusive situations,
Or at least to try to.
or at least to try to, or to get people to like, Jesus Christ, fucking please. But because humor is also a way to relate to people, bringing it back to memes, which I are one of my like
Meme queen.
rock
Horny
hard.
meme queen.
Love,
Sorry
I
for
fucking
calling it
love
horny.
memes, and I love memes because they are the perfect distillation of really complex distillation. They are the perfect distillation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Complex information.
Distillation of complex information.
But they really do give people a common language, and there are things that like, you know, because of memes that other people who have radically different upbringings than yours will also know because of memes, and they are a super valuable common language that like you kind of have to be in the know to understand some of them.
Totally.
But that can also be used as like a secret code to
it's
communicate
encrypting.
complex
It's like,
things.
you know, you don't speak our language clearly because you don't get this.
Yeah, totally. And I didn't, okay, so like a common example that I thought of that where I didn't know what a particular meme meant, I just thought it was funny, but then somebody clued me into it and I was like, period, that's fucking hilarious.
You just make your own joke.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, I just thought we were, okay, it was during the George Floyd protests, and there was a picture going around of a girl holding a sign that said, whoever threw that tear gas, your mom's a hoe. And hilarious on its face. And then I posted it, and then my friend's little brother, who is famously much younger, much cuter than I am, was like, not cuter, but definitely younger. Yeah. He was like, it's from this video of this teacher like being like, whoever threw that piece of paper, your mom's a hoe. And I was like, oh wait, that's actually fucking funny too by itself. But again, it was like a disconnect thing that I didn't know what it meant until somebody explained it to me. But there are other ways that I could have organically found that video, but didn't until somebody clued me in. Yeah, I don't know. We also talked about like Monty Python and the funniest joke in the world.
Two peanuts walking down the strasse. One was assaulted. Peanut.
Law and Order.
SPU.
Salted Peanuts Unit. Yeah, I found this peanut assaulted, and even though I had my sensible running heels on, the pup was too fast for me. I couldn't catch him.
You know, we've seen this guy back in New York. Fast. Hits the peanut, runs.
Yeah, I think he's seasoning for a reason, sir. It's disgusting, and frankly, too much sodium.
Heinous. Monster.
Something I was thinking about with memes is like, and this is based off a conversation we had a week ago or so, which is that, you know, I'm non-binary, but I experienced life through the, I guess, persona of a woman. That's my drag name.
Persona of a woman. Just persona, honestly, is a
like a drag name. Okay.
Persona.
Done. So me and Kaylee were talking about, me and Dickhead, we're talking about the fact that growing up, there were all these kind of Judd Apatow style movies that were very geared towards horny teenage boys. And there were moments of humor in them that we could, you know, laugh at, but it wasn't for us.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things about memes is that it's humor for us, made by us. And it's not, you know, something that we have to just pick and choose what we can enjoy from. And it's like, we are the intended audience. And there's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's kind of like we discovered this show, Girls 5 Eva.
Yes.
And that was just a fantastic example of something that felt very much, and something big, like a full TV production, multiple seasons.
Yeah.
That felt like it was made for us.
Yes.
Specifically. Just
Specifically.
jokes on jokes. Fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Props.
Yeah. So that again too is like a terrific example of a common language. There are things that are only going to be funny to particular people of particular kinds of experiences, but you can use it in order to like communicate directly to those people. I was thinking about too, like when we were watching Mr. Mayor, which was a show that I just discovered, even though it ended like 2 years ago. There were only 2 seasons of it. It's fucking hilarious because there are also tons of jokes in it too that you're not necessarily like you'll get, and they'll be funny, but there's a whole new level of hilariousness if you live in Los Angeles.
Oh,
which
yeah.
we do. Raiders.
Yes.
Raiders.
Which
we do. And so there was extra things about it where I was like, wow, that's actually the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard because I live here and I connect to it directly. Anyways.
And me, as someone who kind of just moved here and does not get as many of the references, it was still funny, but not as funny because it wasn't for me. I'm not an Angelino yet.
Yes. Newly
persona of a woman.
Baptized persona of a woman. Me, the persona of a woman.
Another thing in terms of universal language, you were telling me the story of when you were in London, right? And you kind of ran into those 2 girls.
Yeah, my partner and I were sitting in a pub, and there were very limited seats, and so we asked these 2 girls if we could sit at the table with them. And then eventually we like get to talking, and we have all these things in common, or like common cultural references, even though they both grew up in the Middle East. I think one grew up in Dubai, and I do not remember where the other girl grew up, but like radically different cultural touch points, like radically different cultures that they grew up in, experiences, blah, 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 blah. But we had seen a lot of the same shows and shit, and we knew a lot of the same stuff, and we had this like common internet-based humor because they grew up on the internet and because I also grew up on the internet. And so we shared a lot of overlap in that regard. And I was like, wow, that's fucking powerful, bitch, that these 2 people who come from such completely different worlds than I do, and we have so much in common because we both come from the internet and memes and things like that.
It's pretty fucking magical, actually, and I don't.
It was a big slight.
I know any other kind of group of humans.
No, at no other period of time could I have that much in common. Yeah, with people who literally grew up on the opposite side of the world in a radically different culture. And that's why I'm like, the internet gets a lot of shit, but it also is like not to be corny and horny, but it is also an incredible tool, and it does bring people together, and that's fucking cool. So
it does. Yeah, it's
and
really...
look, you allegedly, even though our high school was incredibly straight, you did grow up in a relatively liberal, quote unquote, really...
Silicon Valley arguably is like the least
liberal
culturally
of the Bay Area. Yeah. Especially now, it's gotten like way more conservative.
Oh my God, yeah.
But like for kids who didn't, I guess the point is like you did grow up to some extent going to like pride parades and things like that. But for kids who didn't, who grew up on the internet, that was like their first introduction to like, holy shit, it's okay.
There are people like me.
There are people like me, exactly. And so much of that gets transmitted too through like humor and jokes that like different communities have.
Completely. And I actually remember humor being my first kind of into the internet. I was not really into a lot of games, but I was into the first kind of YouTube funny videos, like
for sure, yeah.
Shoes. Oh my
God, shoes. Yeah, we are dating ourselves because that is of a very particular moment in time.
Date me, baby. I'm open, single, ready to mingle.
They are single.
And then there was another one. My hands are bananas. Your hands are bananas. That was a good one. Classic.
A classic. Club classic for sure. No, absolutely, dude. All of the like, I mean, some of my first forays into like a community that I first found online that became an in-person IRL community with
Earl.
Earl community. It's like, I watched all of the like Star Kid videos and
What's a
things
Star
like
Kid
that.
video?
Okay, a Very Potter musical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, I love that.
the people who produce that and like
Oh.
My Dick, the musical. I'm totally fucking butchering this. That's not the name of it. But
My
it's like
dick.
no, it is like a
Oh, that's what it's
it
called?
is a musical about a dick. I don't think
Oh,
it's called My
okay.
Dick, but it is something
It's
dick.
like a
My
penis.
Dick. I'll find it later. We'll
Mine
put it here.
Dickens.
Whatever. And then because I loved that so much, and because there were all these like fan edits of all that shit, I tried out for the musical that the Very Potter
Oh
people
yeah,
were
that
putting
was
on.
fucking
I'm still friends
awesome.
with all those
That
people,
was the
right?
most awesome. I
We were
remember
like
the community of that was crazy.
totally, and we're still like incesty besties, you know, like we're
Incesty
still like
besties.
deeply, deeply entwined.
You're doing a little dinosaur
Okay.
scissoring.
What are you making love?
What is this? Making love?
Making love?
The next kind of point that we wanted to explore is humor as a way of reclaiming the narrative or of challenging power.
Yeah.
Something I found recently, going back to Elon Musk, Dairy Cow, there's so much power in kind of ridiculing these ridiculous fucking clowns.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about like anti-propaganda and
Can work both ways.
yeah, which like I don't know, what do you classify as anti-propaganda, or can you think of any examples of it?
Well, I'm sure that I could if I gave it a moment, but I
Yeah,
did
sure.
try to create some the other day with
Oh fuck.
Mark Zuckerberg as Fart Fuckerberg.
Which
It was
is
a first attempt, and we'll show you.
First draft, last draft. Honestly, it's fucking
First-
spectacular.
It's a big clown nose moment.
Insert
The first
here.
one I
Yeah,
did was
yeah,
a
yeah.
little too fabulous, so I did another
mhm.
one, and it's interesting because I don't usually draw with the intention of making someone look stupid and ugly, but it was really satisfying.
It was really difficult. I would also like to point out there are some, like, even if we insert this on the screen, which I'm hoping we do, there are some textural nuances of the piece that you, the reader, is going to miss,
Just
which is that
poop.
they used a brown Crayola crayon to add the textural experience of shit on Mark Zuckerberg's asshole, and it really
It's a
is
crusty asshole.
It really is crusty.
That's my finest textural work to date.
When we were initially talking about it, I came up with the example of when Scooby-Doo made fun of the KKK and how powerful that actually was, because it was like they portrayed the KKK as like bumbling and like fuck ups who couldn't do anything right, and it was a children's cartoon, and so it was like extra
especially demeaning.
It was especially demeaning to these fucking racists, and it was super like effective, essentially, to get people to view the KKK as something that was like not only worthy of mocking, but something that ultimately could be like dealt with because they were so inept and like bumbling.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I think it's like incredibly effective that Republicans do get really upset when we call them fucking freaks.
They are
And
so sensitive.
They're
to
so
that.
sensitive to
Yeah.
that. Like all the women, you probably haven't seen it, but there are lots of women on TikTok who are doing recreations of like Republican women's makeup.
Oh my god, it's so bad.
It's so bad, and it's so fucking
holy
on point,
shit,
and
we're in a
it's
cake face
so
moment.
motherfucking funny because it's like not only it's an accurate and specific burn, and it is like really, really bothering them.
But yeah, making fun of politicians is easy, effective, and you should try it today. Sexy.
Yeah.
What? I mean, one thing, if you're looking at this grand scale of trying to, create mass movements, anti-fascist movements, you can kind of scale it down to a micro metaphorical level where you're dealing with one tyrant-like person. So it's a one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
And even in that micro kind of dichotomy, humor is an insanely powerful tool for shaking your enemy, so to speak, right? If you're laughing, they are off guard.
Mm-hmm.
If you're laughing, clearly you're not, you know, terrified or
Yeah.
troubled to a
Yeah.
huge degree. It's such a
Yeah.
power move,
Yeah.
right? Laughing in the face of horrors is a big dick pussy energy move.
Yeah.
It's like invincibility to a degree. I can see that being infuriating for someone who,
Yeah.
you know,
This is
takes
not
themselves very seriously.
Yeah, this is not the perfect example, but I was telling Layla the other day, sorry, I was telling Mantis King the other day about when I got stung by a stingray and I was in so much physical pain because
God.
of the venom that by the time my partner was driving me home, I stopped sobbing and started laughing. One, because it does effectively.
So scary.
It's so scary.
I would
He
get
thought I was-
terrified at that point. I'd be like,
he thought I-
did it get to her?
He thought I was losing my mind, but it was accomplishing the same thing, and it was actually relieving the pain better than just crying and screaming was. It was like relaxing me to some extent. It was still getting oxygen to my body the way that crying does as well.
And I'm sure there's chemicals released, like in
there are totally chemicals. I mean, there must be.
Crying, laughing, and crying release a lot of the same chemicals in terms of like,
I would think,
relieving stress and distracting us from our pain.
We are not science queen and
I'm
king.
a doctor.
All right, moving on. The very last thing that we discussed was using humor as a call to action, which we feel like all of these points sort of culminate in.
Yes. You know what we need to do? We need to dance for a second.
Hi, honey. Happy first day of school. Do you want to hold my hand while you cross? No? What about you, Daddy? You want to hold my hand while you cross?